I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to Home.
Who's going to break Nate Smith's world title?
Oh, he's done it! And look at these two go! He's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been!
You've waited long and hard during the winter, but FSR is finally back. We're in Melbourne for the start of the 2026 Formula Sim Racing Pro Championship. My name is Edward Hunter, otherwise known as FSR President. Alongside me is my wonderful co-commentator, Ryan Ferris, and our dutiful, hard-working broadcast director, Amir Oates, who's going to take you through all the action here from Albert Park in downtown Melbourne, the circuit that threads its way around the big boating lake in the middle of Australia. But anyway, Ryan, here we are, start of a brand new season. Of course, Istvan Single was our champion in 2025. He moves up, I believe he said he was going to retire, and then he's unretired, and he's moved up to the World Championship. So we wish Istvan, a resident Hungarian, all the very, very best. But we have got a very, very strong field. I believe on the entry list, we've got about 28, 29 people that have entered. Considering how difficult things got at points last season, we have the unprecedented, in my presidency situation, of a nearly full pro field. And there are some really, really exciting talents, some very, very new to sim racing, looking to prove themselves at what is currently the second tier in FSR.
Yeah, we got big grid at the moment, it seems, compared to last season. We're going up into the 20s now. I think at the moment I can see in the practice session 23 cars. So it's all looking very promising in a bright new season for FSR.
Indeed, and one thing we have done is we have forced, we may not necessarily see teams with different liveries, but each two-car team entry, there are a couple of one-car team entries in there, but each team consisting of one or two drivers, mostly two drivers, has to have a different team identity and name. Hopefully we can get them different liveries as well for the sake of commentary, but because we do have a couple of teams that have wanted to enter more than two drivers, particularly in Pro and a couple of times in World Championship, so they're all distinct individual entries that shouldn't, emphasis on shouldn't be working together in cahoots, because the last thing we want is a cartel of like 8 drivers that are all working together to basically let each other through and block anyone else from being part of the fun. We don't want a wall of 8 drivers on the run into turn 1 trying to just crash everybody else out, which, not that anybody would do that normally anyway, but just to allay any fears that viewers might have. You can tell we've been talking about this behind the scenes quite a lot, but anyway, as you say, I am really, really excited to see how this goes. There's a couple of names you might recognize from last season, of course. Cedric Bill moving over. Sadly, Go Team Racing just were not able to continue. Didn't quite have the personnel to keep the team running in FSR this season. So Cedric Bill, who won a couple of races at the end of last season, he's moved over to Optimal eSports, who were, of course, the team's champions in Pro and are looking to retain that title. We have got a couple of drivers who were in World Championship last season from MV Conquest, Yasse Lattinen, Lucas Viscott. I think Lattinen in particular, who's been so strong in GPVWC Formula Sprint 1, and I think is also moved up to Super Lights this season, if memory serves. Amir is probably going to instantly correct me in the background, but but yeah, Lattinen is a real talent. So I'm really, really excited to see how he gets on. And then a list of new drivers that we also got David Akhayan driving for one of the Optimal satellite teams. Essentially, I think there are 3 or 4 Optimal teams, and the third of them, Optimal Trophy, is the one that David Akhayan, who won the pro race in Mexico at the very end of last season. So he'll be looking to build some momentum from that as well. And we also got Valet coming back as well, with Dano Bramfalm leading that squad.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Plenty of new names, either previous or returning here, and so that some of the stalwarts of last season aren't here to take up the front. So we might have some fresh new faces running up the front this season.
Indeed, we will. And we also, of course, have got for Severin Ares, our World Championship race director, David O'Reilly, who will be taking part at his home race, of course. For the, I think he did his home race last season as well, if memory. Oh no, I think he started midway through the season. So this might be David's first Australian Grand Prix. So yeah, certainly there'll be lots of support for David O'Reilly, who you will be hearing in the commentary box alongside Ewan O'Leary and Owen Harmon. For the World Championship race, which of course hasn't got quite as big an entry list as Pro, but yeah, I think there's a good 24, 22 people that have signed up so far at the moment. So hopefully they all show up then. But anyway, it's not long until briefing ends, and we are going to get our season underway. And interestingly, in practice so far, best time 1:14.554 by Jase Latinen from MV Conquest, and it's cost us Gallen and Martis, who of course is the driver for Ottimale, the fourth of our Optimal Esports essentially entries from Ruben Machete. And Gallen and Martis and his teammate James Knox, you might also recognize from Grand Prix Virtual World Championship, where he also owns the Fox Esports team. It's a competitor to my team in FS2 there, which is kind of funny to see James coming over to my series as well. And I wish both of them all the best. But yeah, Costas was a bit of a surprise package last season. As we see here is the calendar. Yes, I've been neglecting this. I should probably get onto this. But yeah, we I think there's a little bit of finalizing to do, because I think Canada, I believe, clashes with Formula 1 at the moment, because I think we put the calendar together and then realised that Formula 1 had changed some of their dates, so we might have to shift along. We also got 3 community vote races where we've got a list of 12 tracks, and after Bahrain on the 5th of April, in a few weeks' time, which is round 2, that's when the community vote will open ahead of Bahrain, essentially, so there will be plenty of time to vote. The top 3 voted tracks, they will be the ones ended up on the calendar. Our most popular will be on the 10th of May, followed by the second most popular, 21st of June, and the third most popular on the 12th of July. So there's a big list on the forum if you want to check it out for yourself. Plenty of exciting tracks. Mexico, I think, is still on there. Nürburgring, Hockenheim, loads and loads of big classics. Monza is on there as well. So yeah, if you really want those tracks on the calendar, then you got to vote for them when the voting opens. We also got Bahrain, which is because of DLC track, on 26th of April. Montreal, that I mentioned earlier. The 2 community vote races after. We got Spa-Francorchamps, 26th of July. Singapore on the 9th of August, our penultimate round of the season. And Brazil on the 30th of August. Because of course we did end up delaying the start of the season, so we end up having to go a couple of weeks extra. So we don't quite go into September, but yeah, Brazil will be the final round of the season. And you'll notice, unlike Formula 1, we have got, sadly, because of course they had to cancel 2 of their races, we have got 2 races in April. So I guess, hopefully, I don't think many people who would be watching Formula 1 would be switching over to us, but you never know. And if this is indeed your very first FSR broadcast, we wish you a very warm welcome, because you're in for quite a treat as you see our 2026 field in action. Of course, it's very, very similar cars to 2025. We haven't done quite the overhaul that Formula 1 has done, but we have refined the model, not least, but it's a bit louder than it was in 2025, which will be the main thing I think that people will notice. But visually and performance-wise, it is an iteration of the car we had in 2025. With 2027, I think, is going to be our first new spec car that we thought we'd see how the land lies and then make all the big changes, essentially. Which I think, given the resources we got at the moment, and given that we didn't want to scare drivers away by bodging together a sort of half okay 2026 car that nobody knows quite how to make it work, because that has happened before when we tried to get ahead of the rules. So we thought we'd play it a little bit more conservatively, but we know we've got a good racing package here from last season, and I think we've got an even bigger field to enjoy it around.
Yep, and going by the practice times at the moment, it's looking very, very close indeed. top 11 at the moment are within a second of each other, and it's less than 2/10 separate the top 6 in practice at the moment. So how that's going to transfer into qualifying is going to be very exciting, I think.
Yeah, we also have got, I think we've only got one driver in the form of Nando Massa who's decided he wants to do Pro and World Championship this season because he's a driver for Grand Effect SimRacing this season, alongside Perseus Miram from Canada, of course. So both of them, I think Massa rejoining the team and Miram joining the team for the first time, if memory serves. So yeah, there's a lot of storylines to keep track of, a lot of new logos and new teams as well. Let's get onto the track and see what the action looks like then. So I'll do our best to try and remember the 4 optimal related teams, which are, of course, Optimal eSports with Bill and Van Leeuwen. Optimal Hosting with Philip Savinsky and Thijs Jongstra. We've got Optimal Trophy, which is the sort of brownish team with David Akine and Christian Glamsetter, who, of course, recently won in GBVWC Formula Sprint 2. So congrats on that. Taking his first win there. And we've also got Ottimale, which is the sort of dark red team, which, of course, as mentioned, is Galamadis and James Knox. Also, other entries are under multiple teams. We've got SimSpark. They have, obviously, Terry Crawford, who I talked about earlier. No, I didn't talk about Terry. It's also his home race, along with David O'Reilly, in that number 73 SimSpark. Him and Alex Hallows, who's rejoined the championship after a bit of a year away. So good to see SimSpark in action. We've also got Maximum Racing, which is the sort of sister team of SimSpark, also entered by Terry Crawford. They've got Edward Gluckel, who you might remember from the Winter Series, and Frederick Lejon, who also did a couple of entries at the end of last season and in the Winter Series as well. So we wish them the best on their sort of first full season in FSR Pro. So definitely a lot of our new entries looking to impress on their first attempt then, as I believe we are not far away from... we're in the middle of qualifying. 9 minutes to go. So this is going to be very, very exciting then to see the lay of the land. And if, as you say, Ryan, if practice is anything to go by, it could be very, very tight at the top.
Yeah, indeed. And already we're seeing the first laps starting, as it is quite a bit of a short qualifying session here, but first drivers starting their flying laps.
Yep, that's going to be very, very exciting. Unfortunately, I can't see any of it at the moment, so I'm going to very, very quickly try and leave and get back into Discord so I can actually see qualifying, because I've been looking at all sorts of different things. And there we go. No, I've got it working. There we go.
I was going to say, I was trying to say someone's doing a flying lap, but I can't quite say who it is.
It's Viscott, I think. There we go.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing in the dark blue and red MV Conquest livery. And MV Conquest, of course, run by Mihailo Vincentievich, who has really stepped up his involvement with a really amazing World Championship entry list. That's our onboard, I guess. It's a black screen. There we go. So, yeah, early teething troubles, I'm afraid. But, yeah, the MV Conquest team and Mihailo Vincentievich also won the sponsors of the championship, if I'm not mistaken. He has really been very, very generous in his support of FSR and indeed of just rFactor 2 open wheel sim racing leagues in general as well. So Mihailo, we love seeing him on track. We love seeing his drivers perform as Viscott. Finishes the lap 1:14.9, but we see Savinsky, Galamadis, Latinen, and Glamsetter exceed his efforts there. As Philip Savinsky taps the wall there in one of the optimal eSports entries, of course. So that is going to be the end of his lap as he goes back to the pit lane then. But this is really where we're going to see the soft tyres at their maximum. Cedric Bill has set a fantastic final sector there, 1:14.217, his current best time. And of course, Cedric Bill, you may remember, won 2 in a row near the end of last season, one in Circuit of the Americas and one at Suzuka, with some brilliant sort of tyre saving strategies where he was able to basically do just one stop less than everybody else, stay out of trouble, and that ended up being the key to victory on those 2 occasions, and I believe it took him to 3rd in the standings, if I'm not mistaken. So Cedric definitely looking to go a couple of places better, and he is certainly a man that's really improved in the last couple of seasons in the FSR Junior categories. Even had a couple of debut appearances in World Championship as well. So, yeah, how much longer will it be before this Frenchman really turns his attention to the big leagues as the rear end just absolutely steps out, coming out of the final corner. But still provisional pole for Cedric Bill.
Yeah, and it was for Bill last season. A lot of his success came from running slightly different strategies to the rest of the field and just making tyres last a little bit longer in middle stints. So it meant that he had some very fresh tyres and younger tyres compared to the rest of the field. So he's already showing he's got the paces at the moment in these opening qualifying sessions. And so with that and his ability to be a bit of a tyre whisperer, he could be a force to reckon with this season.
Yeah, you just see Sabra Elekis there in his first full season. Did a couple of rounds from Singapore onwards last season. He has got a car into 5th place on the grid, sorry. And of course, Sabra Elekis driver for... I forget where he is on the entry list. I think Sabra might have been a very, very late entry for... Is it 7 Arrows then, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, it is, because he's got the same icon as David O'Reilly then. So good to see Sabra giving Pro another go as we watch Nandor Masa, a bit of a stalwart in the Pro Championship. I remember last time he was with Grand Effect, he was doing the Academy Championship, and he did the whole of the, I think it was the 2024 season, he did the entire campaign as the sole Grand Effect, and he was always doing crazy strategies. Like everybody else would start on hards or mediums at very tire heavy circuits, he would just start on the softs. This was Latinen lighting up the middle sector then. This is very much what we expected from the Finn. Will this put him to the top of the times? Indeed it does. He is 2 attempts clear of Cedric Bill there, and Latinen, who was able to sneak into the top 10, bottom of the end of the top 10, was one of our better rookies in World Championship last season, who sprang the odd surprise. He is a lot of people's favorite to do well here in Pro this season, unsurprisingly. And I remember, as we see David O'Reilly spinning into the pit wall there, just about held onto the front wing. But that was an interesting line from David as he tries to match his teammate Jared Batala there in the battle for 15th place on the grid there.
Yeah, it was less than ideal. He was running a lot of understeer there going through turn 15. And it was like he was just trying to make up a bit of lost time and just lighting those rears up. It seems to be rear end grip is a bit of a struggle for some of these drivers in the latter part of the lap.
It's Mihailo Vincentievich, been sim racing with FSR at least since 2006, if I'm not mistaken. He sets a personal best but stays 17th fastest then. So yeah, Vincentievich is celebrating his 20th anniversary in FSR, which is a huge milestone and another reason to celebrate his appearance here. Currently still 3/10 ahead of Samuele Tidona, who is embarking on his 2nd season. Samuele Tidona, of course, nephew of Giuseppe Canzanillo, who moves up to World Championship this season. Batala improves to P12. As you see, this looks like Christian Glamset hanging out through turns 12 and 13 and into 14 as well, as it looks like the rears are just absolutely overheating there on the brown Optimal car.
Yeah,
Optimal trophy, of course.
I was going to say less than optimal for him, but yeah, it just seemed like he just was carrying a little bit too much speed into that corner and just locked the rears up a little bit. It was somewhat drifting it into the corner, which isn't ideal, but he's got enough time to get back into the pits and get back out and set another lap.
Good lap there by Andrei Borutovsky, one of our very, very vocal members in the community. Often there's like a Discord messages of, as we see Bill just a tenth shy of Latinen. And has he got time for another run there with a 1 minute sector. Has he backed out of that lap at the last minute? No, he's gone 12th fastest. So personal best in the final sector, but Brandfom is still putting it together there. You can see Valet have actually put the FSR logo on the rear wing. I think they did actually have the GPVWC logo on the rear wing last season, as we see Tidona really struggling in the final sector there, despite being on a personal best. So that could be curtains for the Italian then in this qualifying session, as there is one of our new drivers, Capello. That's Andrea Capello for Scuderia Castellana, which is, of course, the new Valet team. They've not quite had time to put the livery together, but they are going for a red colour scheme, appropriately enough for Valet. They've got their two main colours, yellow and red, just like a certain other big Italian team that people may have heard of. To the line comes Capello. In his first appearance, he's a new driver to FSR, and he goes 23rd fastest, 7 seconds off the pace. So still plenty of time to find there as we look at Perseus Miram in P14, but currently it really feels like Landon and Bill are our two pace setters, and certainly they are two of the ones that were predicted to do extremely well, as we see Miriam come to the line.
Yeah, and it seems for some of the new drivers, it's a bit of a baptism of fire in this new season for them. Oh, that's a big slide there.
Well, Terry Crawford, not a new driver, but as you say, certainly some fire going on to the rear there as he slides through the first chicane. So Terry Crawford will do no better than 20th in the Australian Grand Prix qualifying. Here, Galnamadis, good effort there to consolidate that P4 then. So Kostas Galnamadis showing well, the Greek driver, at the start of the pro season, putting himself onto the second row, as here is Krzysztof Szylski, who is a new entrant here for the Mission 19 Vela 1 GP team, along with his teammate Reres Toma. Reres, of course, is, I think, one of the youngest pro drivers we have had in quite a while, because he is only just in his teenage years, essentially. As we see Galnamadis, has he just been beaten by Glamsetter, I think, who's just gone up to P3 right at the end there. So Christian Glamsetter, fresh off of his first Formula Sprint 2 victory in Japan, has got onto third on the grid for Optimal Trophies. We see Brandfom drifting it through there, and the Super Swede, who had some really strong appearances in the Winter Series. It was great to see Danove back in FSR after a season away. He is really struggling to get the rear to behave on these qualifying laps. Yeah. And he's going to be a second off the pace in 13th on the grid. So that's a driver we can expect to really trying to push forward to get further into the top 10.
Yeah, it seems like Valet is struggling, particularly in that final sector. A lot of the time we're seeing them struggling for the rear end grip, as we saw quite apparently there. Interestingly, Toma putting in a pretty quick lap. He hadn't put anything on the board until just putting in a last lap per flyer, and he did put the fastest middle sector in, so something to look out for during the main race.
Yep, very, very impressive there. Right, arrest. Whereas if he can finish the race, essentially 50 laps of action coming your way. But let's look at how the grid shapes up then at the end of the first qualifying session of the season. It is Finland's Jase Lahtinen that takes pole for MV Conquest. So Mihaly Vincentievich will be happy to see his lead driver, the only man to dip into the 113s there. Cedric Bill lines up second on the grid. Alongside him, just under 2/10 down, Christian Glamsetter, with his late effort, gets the Optimal Trophy car just ahead of Optimal Hosting. So it's a battle of the Optimal Satellite. Well, satellite is the right entry. The independent Optimal entries in third and fourth, with Glamsetter just taking on over Philip Savinsky. Then it is Kostas Galnamadis for Optimale in P5. So there's a bit of a theme going on here. Just behind him, we have got Reres Toma in his first appearance. Could this be a man we come to talk about for a long time in the future of FSR? Mission 19 Vela 1, he will line up 6th on the grid for them. Zaba Elekis gets the 7 arrows into its best ever grid spot in Pro in P7. David Akhayan, winner at Mexico at the end of the previous season. He lines up P8 for Optimal Trophy. Nandor Marsa will line up P9 for Grand Effect, and rounding out the top 10 will be Sander van Leeuwen. He definitely finished on the podium at the end of last season, but van Leeuwen will be setting his sights on replicating that. We've got another MV Conquest. It's Lucas Viscott, a teammate of our pole sitter in P11. Andrzej Bartowski will line up 12th for the MV Conquest ALM team. Or the I forget what ALM stands for, but he's 12th. Dano Branfom lines up just behind in 13th after a scruffy qualifying session for the Super Swede. Then it is Krzysztof Szylski. His first appearance sees him line up P14 for Mission 19 Velo 1GP. Then it is Persis Miram in 15th. That would be our final point scoring position, of course, for the Ground Effect man. Jared Batala just behind in P16. Alex Hallows, good to see the Brit in his debut for SimSpark in P17. David O'Reilly, race director for World Championship, lines up 18th. Mihajlo Vincentievich lines up 19th. And our top 20 is rounded out by Samuele Tidona. On a few drivers on the grid, of course, it is Terry Crawford, local driver, in 21st. Maurici Mazol, another of our debutants, in 22nd. Matt for Kiwi Sim Racing, I believe this is Matthew Stevens. Yep, so Stevens lines up in P23. And Andrea Capello, our last man on the entry list, last man to sign up. He is currently last on the grid, 121.1. So a lot of time to find for the Italian. But let's hope he can have a clean run and get to the end of his first pro race then. So certainly it is a very, very competitive field. And it definitely feels like, whereas last season we had basically the front runners in World Championship and the sort of mid-pack, the front runners in Pro, in the mid-pack in World Championship were kind of interchangeable to an extent, because we did see a lot of people doing double duty. It definitely feels like there's a little bit of a clearer division, really, where the top drivers in Pro, very, very strong, but it doesn't feel like it's a huge gulf in the middle of the field like there sometimes was last season. It definitely feels like, for the most part, they are surprisingly closely packed together, and that really shows that probably, fingers crossed, the split is in roughly the right place, and we've got people in roughly the right splits for World Championship and Pro. Of course, I'm a bit biased as the president, I would say that, but Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a fairly competitive field this season. Some people down the back end of the field maybe definitely have some time to find. Maybe a few more hours of practice might help that, but obviously everyone's got very busy lifestyles around this series.
Also, there's the sense we didn't quite realize that we were going to have quite so many signups, and we sort of because we ended up having to delay the season a little bit, we ended up not being able to run our third tier academy, which was a bit of a shame. But I think there's a couple of drivers that probably were really, really excited about signing up in academy, and then ended up sort of being slightly reluctantly, but not having to pay a higher entry fee, of course, being pushed up to pro. So I think there's a couple of drivers that will probably prefer the shorter race distance, at least less chance of something to go wrong. But nonetheless, they have been very game, and they've been good sports about it. And let's hope that we see as many finishes as possible. But knowing that it's Melbourne, it's a very high-speed street circuit. When accidents happen here, they tend to be big ones.
Yeah, and they generally don't tend to be very slow either, those accidents. There's a lot of high-speed sections, particularly now, obviously being on the newer layout that we've had, same as previous season, where it is pretty much just all flat out from turn 7 onwards up to turn 11. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Yep. So enough yapping from us. Let's get in a few quick videos in from our sponsors. On the Never side, we'll be there for our first pro race of the season.
SimRacer's Performance Guide, your guide to race setup, strategy, driver performance. Dive in deep, learn about suspension, aero, braking, drivetrain, with a 77-page manual packed full of hours of video tutorials as well.
Welcome back to Albert Park in Melbourne, Australia for the opening round of the 2026 Formula Sim Racing Pro Championship. We are moments away from our first 50 laps of action of the season, and it is, of course, Yassi Latinen and Cedric Bill that line up on the front row with a field of a good 24 drivers looking to make a good impression then in the second tier. Just below the World Championship. Ryan Ferris alongside me in the commentary box. Ryan, obviously you mentioned a couple of drivers to look out for there. Obviously we've got our two men on the front row. We have got Rarest Toma with that late effort to fifth. But yeah, certainly there's lots of different teams, independent team entries, we should stress, in the top 5, top 6. So it doesn't feel like there's only one team that sort of nailed the setup, and the drivers are fairly evenly spread amongst those particular teams then. So it could be difficult in the teams championship for anybody to really take control in these early rounds, and that could be quite exciting as the season goes on.
Yeah, certainly. And it seems, at least in this race, as we saw from the qualifying, certain teams and drivers are stronger in certain areas of the track. We saw some drivers going quicker in the middle sector, but then losing it all in the final sector. That's very tight and tricky, really, particularly with that turn 15. So it'll be interesting to see how it all balances out over the course of the race.
Yeah, so we're about to see the grid form ahead of the formation lap. I'm going to... this is probably not the wisest decision, but I'm going to dare to check the comments on the stream and see what they are saying. Ruben van den Hudding says, "This is madness with Optiminal." Well, I think that's a fair comment. There's some inventive drivers there. But yeah, I think Cedric Bill on the front row will be looking to get the run into turn 1, of course, but all the drivers on the even numbered spots, you can see on the left-hand side of our camera angle, they're going to have a bit of a tricky job because all the rubber is going to be on the racing line then. So nailing the getaway, dropping the clutch at the right moment is going to be key. As we see, Yassi Latinen leading the formation lap away. So let's go through the grid order then. It is Latinen and Bill making up the front row of the grid. Latinen's first pole in Pro, of course, with Christine Glamsetter and Philip Zawinski making up row 2. Row 3 is Kostas Galanomadis, just ahead of Rarest Toma. And it is Sabrelekis and David Akhayan making up row 4. Row 5, Nando Marsa for ground effect just ahead of Sander van Leeuwen. They round out the top 10. Then it is Lucas Viscott and Andrei Borotovsky in the two MV Conquest sister teams. Dano Branfon and Krzysztof Szylski make up row 7. On row 8, it's Perseus Miram and Gerard Batala for Severin Arrows. Row 9 is Alex Hallows and David O'Reilly, followed by Mihailo Vincentievich and Sambieli Tadona on row 10. Row 11 is local driver Terry Crawford, with Mauricio Mazzol in his debut lining up P22. Then on row 12, we have Matthew Stevens making his first appearance in a while for Kiwi Sim Racing, and Andrea Capello, who I believe is our 24th and final driver on the grid for Scuderia Castellana. I do tell a lie, that is actually the valet livery there, as we see one of the 7 Arrows cars coming out of the pit lane. Is that Zabraleki's, potentially? Or... oh, it's David, sorry. Our race director in his home race deciding, I think, so either something's happened there, either he's not put enough fuel in and he's gone back to the garage to make sure that he can get to the end of the race without having, because you can't refuel, of course, or he has decided he didn't like the tyres he was starting on and he's picked some different ones. Anyway, we'll have to see. We'll update halfway through the first lap to see what
Someone
tires
off in the
they're all
background.
starting on. Whoa! That's one of the Mission Vela 1 GP cars that has spun. I believe, is that Mauricio Mazzol? Mazzol, of course, I believe filling in Eric Brenner's car. Eric Brenner, I spoke to him earlier. He said that he didn't realize the race was today. But there we go. Mazzol has slotted into his grid slot, somewhat to the frustration of the people behind who had to wait quite a while. But we shouldn't have to wait too much longer then for the red lights to come on and action to get underway in the Pro Championship for the first time in 2026. The lights go out now. And we are underway in Melbourne. Oh, and a big crash in the background. That's one of the 7 Arrows cars in the wall there. Oh, dear. I think that may have been Alekis that was just sent into the wall there. But a very, very clear start for Jesse Lafton, who's pulled already quite the gap on Cedric Bill, who's now fighting with Philip Savinsky into turn 3. Savinsky on the inside. That's quite the dive. Savinsky looks like he's on the medium tyre as well, if on screen is to be believed, as they're all shuffling through the first sector. But a very chaotic start, and for Zabra Alekis, that was just an absolute nightmare there. I'd love to know which of the Optimal cars it was that sort of just stalled on the grid there.
Yeah, it's didn't quite catch it. Still trying to get over the color schemes this season of the Optiminals, but
Ranfarm not had a great start either. He's dropped to 24th and last. I think Danover's had a spin somewhere, as we see. Oh, a bit of side-by-side through 11 and 12 there. Nando Marsa just fending off Van Leeuwen then in the battle for P7. Then Marsa making a good start here.
Yeah, and Latonen getting away 2.7 seconds already up the road, as Bill was under pressure from third place. And that's really affected his run in second position.
Yep, so let's see at the end of the first lap. I believe Gan Lamadis might be the only one gambling on the soft tyre at the start here. And unfortunately, Zabra Alekis, he gambled on the soft as well and ended up spun into the wall there. As we see Viscott going up the inside of, that looks like Glamsetter then. So Glamsetter's gone from third on the grid. It must have been Christian that I think got a horrible launch off the line. He's trying to fight back against Viscott then into turn 3. And there we go. Back around the outside goes Christian Glamsetter then. So Viscott, a bold attempt, but Glamsetter has got a few tricks up his sleeve as he seeks to regain the ground he lost early doors. As we see, Crawford, Brownfarm, and Alekis coming in for repairs. Alekis looks like he's retiring from the race, sadly.
Yeah, it was a big hit on the start, went straight into the wall, and so unsurprising there. Probably too much time spent in the pit lane for repairs.
Interesting comments. Flex DL says Optimal Racing League. Sort of possibly understandable. And then we also see Zoltzuk says Marsa is a survivor of the first lap there. So clearly sort of trying to support his countryman and former stablemate, of course, as we see Samuele Tidona fighting away to fend off Matthew Stevens here. So Matthew Stevens for the Fuji SimRacing team. Hasn't quite put a livery together, so he's driving the default FSR car. But yeah, definitely looks like Matthew Stevens, as we apologize a little bit. I think we're having a few lag issues with so many cars on the grid.
There's a crash up ahead, I think.
Oh dear, is that Mazzol? I think that. Oh no, it's Vincentievich. I think that's lost his front wing into turn 1.
Yeah, just saw someone losing it into corner entry. There he is. So I don't know if we can get a replay of that, but it looked like either he was tagged going into turn 1 or he just lost it under braking from what I could see up in the distance.
Yeah, it's possible he might have gone a little bit too far to the outside and hit the wall maybe as he lost control. Maybe, I don't think there's a DRS zone there into turn 1, so it's only really on that approach into sort of 11 and 12 that the DRS is. So definitely a bit of an odd one there, having not seen what happened. But yeah, Vincentievich maybe just found that there was no space at turn 1 and ended up being sent straight into the gravel trap. But it's going to be almost a walk of shame back to the pit lane for him for repairs, as this is what happened. He's fighting away with, I think that's Miram. Oh, he shut the door on Miram and didn't realize the ground effect was there. He's just a passenger and he's got a spin turn in the gravel that returns to the track.
Yeah, so not ideal, but he'll get his way back to. Here's the start.
This is Glamsetter stalling. Whoa! And then Alekis reacted well, but he just spun up the rear tyres. This is soft at the start, so he almost had, if anything, not enough grip right when he needed it.
Yeah, and it was just a matter of off the start, lights out, not away we go. Oh, it just seems to stall.
It's always a horrible feeling. You see that's Viscott trying to go to the left-hand side into turn 1, and Glamset has actually done well to recover as well as he has from the start. He's certainly a little bit fired up to get back into the top 4 that he started this race in, as he's in 8th at the moment behind Van Leeuwen in the main optimal car. They're both being blocked by Marso, who's now in P6. It's free wide into turn 13 there, and Clamson sees the road. Oh, as Marso almost pushes Van Leeuwen into the wall there. And the Dutchman is not going to be pleased with that little.
I don't think there was any almost about it. He did put him in the wall, but yeah, not ideal. Not something you're used to seeing each day. 3 wide into turn 13.
We've completely missed a significant development to lead the race. Lattinen has fallen to P19, and now Cedric Bill is leading by half a second over Filip Zawinski. Bill on the hard tyres as well. I think Lattinen still on the mediums that he started with, so. Has Lattinen made a mistake somewhere, or potentially maybe he's had some sort of issue out of his hands that has dropped him well outside the points?
Yeah, hopefully this is that.
He's coming to that's the MV Conquest of Lattinen in the pits then. So, he's spun. He's coming over a lapped car. And he taps into the back and crashes out one of the Sim Sparks. As Cedric Bill comes over the debris. And everybody slows right down, but obviously new front wing needed for Lattinen. So this is Terry Crawford, after having a couple of misadventures out there, doesn't see Lattinen coming in at a rate of knots, and that is a hugely dramatic moment for the man many expected to be the runaway favourite to win this race. Terry Crawford just in the wrong place at the wrong time. To me, I think Nasty Lattinen could have been a bit more patient there.
Yeah, I feel. For Crawford, essentially all he did was he took the corner the way he would, and Lattinen's just come barreling in and smashed into the back of him. So I think blame's probably more to go on Lattinen for that one.
Yeah, a couple of people in the chat, including Remco Dizay, saying lapped car happened, which I think is an accurate summation, and a couple of people saying that he was brake checked, which I don't think is fair. Didn't particularly from the outside. Unless there's a telemetry that'll say different, look like any foul play there from Terry Crawford, who I know is a very, very clean driver. Not necessarily one of our front runners, of course, but very, very consistent. Often gets to the end of races when there are points left available in the lower midfield. But yeah, that's a big shame for it to end his first home race in FSR for Terry Crawford then. So at least Lattinen's still in the race, running P18, and with plenty of chance to at least regain some ground and get some points out of this one on a fresh set of medium tyres, having put a new front wing on. As we look at Cedric Bill, who is starting to pull a small gap even on the harder compound to Filip Zawinski, who's 7/8 tenths behind, starting to drop out of DRS range here. Gatlamardis on the softs could still be a big threat to the both of them, of course, in this early phase if he can keep them alive for long enough.
Yeah, and Zawinski on those the medium compound tyres. You see he's just trying to push the car as hard as he can to keep up with Bill coming out of 13. The car getting completely squirrely, and we see yellows into turn 1. So I'm not quite sure what's happened there.
Yeah, it looks like Van Leeuwen has dropped behind Viscott in P9, as we see them battling for that P8, and Viscott just about holding on for MV Conquest here. But yeah, Sander Van Leeuwen, after being shown the wall earlier, is in the battle against the Master, and Glamsetter now going around the outside at turn 3 and losing control, and they tangle into turn 3 and 4, and around the outside of both of them goes Krzysztof Szylski, and you can see there Boratowski now picking his moment to strike. Boratowski closing in, and it is Boratowski getting ahead of his teammate Viscott there. So very, very chaotic there, but Krzysztof Szylski for mission 19 in Vela 1 GP, the door's just open there. Now Alex Hallows fancies a run at Andrei Boratowski now as well.
Yeah, and I don't know how on earth none of them ended up being in the barriers after that, but they managed to scoop it all up and carry on.
Yeah, Viscott looks like he's losing a lot of time here though, so he might have taken quite a whack there.
Yeah, but it's still at the front, getting even closer between Bill and second place. The second place car.
It's Philippe, yeah, as we see. Oh, that looks like Capello being lapped by the leaders and getting out of the way. So Philip Savinsky then senses an opportunity then for the blue Optimal hosting squad, of course, to try and steal the lead here. And in fact, there's another Optimal that they are closing in upon just up the road. I'm not sure who that is. So this could get a little bit confusing. So Bill 4/10 ahead of Savinsky, then Galnamadis in the third of our Optimal teams, of course. That is for the fourth of them, that's the Otomale, the sort of dark red squad. And Rarest Toma is about 3 seconds behind this battle as well, doing very, very well in fourth position ahead of Akhayan as the sister Optimal gets well out of the way there. So right on board with Philip Savinsky then, who is desperately trying to keep Bill under pressure here. As we saw in Latin, these lap cars in a much bigger field, this will be a bit of a talking point for the rest of the season, just sort of staying out of trouble while lapping these cars, especially at a circuit like Albert Park. Could be the difference between winning this race and maybe not even finishing on the podium.
Yeah, and with such a big pace deficit between the front runners and the tail of the field, obviously we've had a few drivers come in for pit stops as a result of damage, so there's going to be people littered around the circuit. As we see a move being lined up here into turn one, but no, thinks better of it.
And Alex Hallows, who was a fair way down the grid, started outside the points, is now in P11 and not far away from challenging Borodowski to get into the top 10 there. So Alex Hallows, the British driver, of course, who was a bit of a semi-regular academy combatant in seasons gone by. It's great to see him back and having a very strong day. Of course, SimSpark have lost their teammate Terry Crawford in that collision earlier, but Hallows is very much having a good run and making up places and staying out of trouble there. And in fact, he has got into the top 10 because I believe Van Leeuwen has hit more trouble and dropped behind him in P11. There we go, Van Leeuwen being slipstreamed with the DRS into turn 11 and 12. And now Lucas Viscott fancies a run at the Dutchman. So these two, no love lost between them as we see, that's the Mission 19 Velo 1 car. Having to get well out of shape there as he lets Savinsky and Galnamadis through. That's Toma, sorry.
Yeah, it was
losing
Toma.
Places.
Getting it all crossed up as they're side by side coming into turn one.
Big mistake there, and there's that Akhayan in the wall there. Just getting too squirrely on the exit of that first chicane there in the first couple of corners. So now Glamsetter, having not made the greatest getaway from the line, he's gone from P8 back to P4, and he's dragged Nando Massa with him. Rarest Toma, despite that spin we just saw, is still in P6 on the mediums. As you see, Szylski was the driver we saw being lapped, I think, by the leaders. He goes into the pits for a new front wing, so he is also hit some trouble, despite making that brilliant move earlier on. And Van Leeuwen on the grass.
Chaos all through the field, battles all through the field as well, and Hallows managing to hold off ahead of Van Leeuwen getting it on the grass a bit, so that's compromises exit, but Viscott is not managing to find a way through just yet.
We also see a comment in the chat from another World Championship driver, Zolt Zux. He says, the race of Nando's life, he learned it from me. I love that idea that all these Hungarian drivers, because they hang out together in real life as well, that they're all taking credit for each other's achievements. Oh my goodness me, as we see Van Leeuwen having another off at 13. It's really not going the Dutchman's way today, is it? He just got a little bit sucked in, trying to get too close to the back of Hallows there while fending off Lucas Viscott. And we have one Optimal driver leading, but his teammate Van Leeuwen is really struggling to just stay where he is currently and stay in the top 10.
I think that was Van Leeuwen trying to almost react to Viscott, because Viscott was showing a nose there into turn 13. And I just think he just outbroke himself.
Philip Savinsky, by the way, is back within DRS range of Bill here. And the interesting thing, though, of course, we still got 39 laps to go, of course. So Bill on the harder tyres, while he may not be lapping as quickly as Savinsky at the present moment, he is trying to extend this stint, which is the Cedric Bill specialty. He desperately wants to make sure that he can get the stint length that he needs, so that I think Cedric Bill may even be trying to one-stop this one, depending on how long he can get the hards to last, so he can just go on to a set of mediums in the final stint and get to the end, whereas Savinsky might be using up a bit more of his tyres. Certainly Gallimatis is not going to be able to do a one-stop. Starting the softs, that's at least a two-stop you would expect.
Yeah, and as I said in the build-up, Bill, always a bit of a tyre whisperer, so if there's anyone on the grid who's going to manage to do the strategy, it's probably going to be him.
Philip Savinsky, though, of course, this is, I think, his first appearance in FSR Pro, to my knowledge, unless I am very much mistaken. But Philippe, of course, is another of the GPVWC stalwarts, of course, in Formula Sprint 2 over there, who's scored podiums and has been a regular, sort of a semi-regular front runner over there. So he's certainly shown some impressive pace in other open wheel rFactor 2 categories. So it's really good to see him genuinely challenging for victory here. If he can take track position from Bill, it could get very, very interesting then. At the moment, though, you do sense those top four of Bill, Savinsky, Gallimatis, Glamsetter are still just sort of getting their eye in. Glamsetter is, I think, more just trying to fend off Master at the moment. But there's no need to go for a risky, unnecessary move at this early phase of the race. I think Savinsky, though, will be hoping maybe even to get the undercut and try and jump Bill in the pits.
Yeah, and well, Glamsetter, after a terrible start, has had a brilliant comeback so far, up to fourth from basically falling down to the midfield. As we're having a little bit of an issue going on with the live timing, but it'll be back soon. So we see a battle here. This is the battle for the lead.
Yep, so last lap time for Bill, 1:19.5. Philip Savinsky, 1:19.3, 0.2 faster. So it is ebbing and flowing between the two, but at the moment the mediums are very much in their own. You can sort of see Gallimatis on the softest compounder tyre. His last lap, 1:19.3, so he's matching Savinsky, getting a bit of the benefit from the slipstream, but he's 9/10 behind, so he won't quite be in DRS range. So Gallimatis, his best play is to sort of nurse these softs as long as he can, and the Greek driver will be hoping that he can maybe convert to the strategy that is the two sister optimal cars ahead of him will be trying to pull off here. But yeah, you would think if Gallimatis can get close enough to Savinsky, he might go for a risky move on the softs, given that they're the ones that he's got the least time on before they'll just start decaying underneath him.
A little bit of a slide there from Savinsky, but Gallimatis on the softer compound tyres, yeah, whether or not he's going to go one stop and just go hard all the way back to the finish, or is he going for a two-stop, we'll soon find out, because Savinsky, he's in a similar situation where he can also go for a one-stop being on those medium compound tyres, but it's all a bit of a balancing act at the moment, and with Savinsky having some big slides at the moment, he's going to struggle.
There is Jared Batalla, of course you may recognise was one of the Go Team drivers last season, was the Spaniard. He is caught up to Alex Hallows. Hallows has not been able to keep Viscott behind on the despite being on the medium tyre then, so the hards are looking like a pretty racy tyre at this point, not least because Bill is leading on the hards, but yeah, it is interesting to see that of course Gallimatis is the only one that's really made the softs work, and we saw Samuel only being lapped by the leaders a few moments ago. He is pulled out of the Australian Grand Prix, so that's going to be our fourth retirement from the race on lap 14 then, as we see Jared Batalla squirming around behind Hallows. He's not going to be close enough for a move in the DRS zone on this occasion.
No, and maybe about to see what caused the retirement for Tadona. Is that?
Does he get disconnected maybe?
Yeah, it looks like a disconnect.
Unless this is the broadcast machine of Amir that's having trouble, in which case we do apologise. Amir says it might be. Here we go. This is Tadona into... Oh, he just loses the back end into 14. And
that's a big hit there.
And the yellow valet has a bit more yellow on it now because it is burst into flames. And sad way for Samuel's sophomore season in pro to start then. Of course, Samuel had occasionally scored a couple of points in races last season then, and have been hoping to really show his improvements Valley have still got, of course, Dano Branfalm down in P17. He has also been lapped. I think it might have actually been Branfalm who we saw being lapped on stream there as we run aboard with Glamsetter, who is him and Marsa both having good comebacks from where they qualified. Marsa has not been dropped away from Christine Glamsetter as we might have expected. As a mistake there, Glamsetter goes a bit wide through turn 12 there, and it's so easy when you're carrying so much speed through that chicane to just find yourself going wider than you intend onto the gravel. And we've seen in the past it has cost drivers less experienced in Pro and Academy chances to win. They've ended up crashing out and hitting the wall there. So that was actually good presence of mind from Glamsetter to back out there and stay in the race and avoid disaster. But those mediums starting to fade. But indeed, Galamatis is going to be our first to blink off of the soft tyres on lap 16 then. So Galamatis surely on a 2-stop here.
Yeah, I would have thought so. It's going to be a big ask for him just to go on a set of hards all the way to the finish. So potentially run medium soft.
He's on the hards. So
he is going for the hards, so he's going to try and throw a bit of a Hail Mary here in strategy.
Might not be able to get the hards to the end, but he could potentially do another stint on the softs.
Softs, yeah.
In the final stint if he needs to, if even the hards start to struggle then. But I think the hard is a much better tire than people were expecting, as we see Mihaila Vincentijevic also coming into the pits, having had a tricky start to the race. That'll be his second trip to the pit lane, of course, after losing his front wing in the collision with Miram, who he's now fighting against, essentially, for P18. So, still 16 cars on the lead lap, so all of our point scorers are remaining on, have yet to see Cedric Bill fly past them, as we see Glamsetter having another little bit of a moment, so he's definitely pushing to try and gap Nando Marsa here, but Nando Marsa, like a bit of chewing gum on your shoe. I mean, it is a pink purpley car, the ground effect, but he will not go away. And Glamsetter now into P3 with that pit stop from Galamatis, who's emerged in P7 just ahead of Andrei Borotovsky, crucially for him. So Galamatis has got some clear air, so it's going to be fascinating to see what his lap times end up being here.
Yeah. And yeah, clear air, hard tyres. Just wants to bring him in nice and easy, as we see a move by Van Leeuwen being teed up here, I believe. Or is that
that is Van Leeuwen, who's changed tyres, of course, to I think a second set of mediums. And might have been to repair some of the damage he was suffering. Whereas Toma also pits from P6 now. So yeah, O'Reilly was not really able to keep. Was that Van Leeuwen being passed by O'Reilly?
I think he was it was a lap car. It wasn't O'Reilly.
Okay, right. It must have been Batala then, who's gone into the pits since then. Okay, I get confused with my 7 Arrows cars. This happens when you have a bigger field, more people to remember then. Interestingly, up front, Bill has built up a 1.5 second gap to Filip Savinsky then. So definitely on the hards, Bill able to show some very impressive pace here, and Savinsky might even be now trying to conserve the mediums to sort of match the stint length that Bill is able to do here.
Yeah, and as Savinsky, as you said, in pit lane, it seemed he was struggling on those mediums, and so whether or not he's going to have the ability to go to distance and the tyre longevity on a set of hards compared to Bill, it just seems that he has got the pace, but not quite the longevity.
Yeah, Rares Toma coming out the pits in P10, just ahead of Alex Halles. Lasse Lattinen, who of course was our pole sitter, was leading before losing his front wing in a collision with Terry Crawford. He is now P9. There he is, about 8 seconds behind his teammate Viscott, and ahead of Toma on the road here. So Lattinen, of course, did pit for that. He's a bit out of sync compared to everybody else. He'll effectively have to make an extra pit stop. So you'd think Lattinen might be able to convert to a 2-stop. That would be bold, though. And of course, he has done. He started on the mediums, did 3 laps on them, and has now done about laps 4 to 17. So that's 13 laps on a second set of mediums. As we see, this is the Severin Aris car.
Crabbing.
Oh dear, that might be Zabriel Ekis then.
Possibly.
It's Jared Batala, sorry.
I was going to say, didn't Alekis retire?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, you're right. It was our first retirement. Yeah, and you can see the steering crabbing horribly on that Severin Aris car of Jared. Yeah. So he's definitely had a wall hit somewhere. Oh,
yeah,
and I think it might.
There, yeah.
So he's fighting away with not Crawford, but Alex Halles, I believe.
and just took too much curb on the exit of turn 2 and off into the barriers he went.
2 big hits there actually, because while he was reversing and trying to recover, the rear end got a whack as well. The 7 arrows, of course, recognisable by its colour scheme and the checkered flag on the inside of the rear wing end plate as well. But that signals the end of Batala's race, so that means David O'Reilly, our resident race director-in-chief, and in his home race, now runs P11 as the sole 7 arrows remaining in our pro opener here as we are closing in into half distance. It looks like Filip Savinski has gone into the pits while we were watching that replay and emerged in 4th position, just ahead of David Akayan then. So that's worked out very, very well for him. It's also promoted Glamsetter and Marsa into 2nd and 3rd. Galamadis, of course, despite pitting earlier, is still behind David Akayan. So Galamadis being a little bit held up here. So the undercut is not quite gone in his favour just yet as in comes Glamsetter.
Yeah, he's able to go a little bit further on those medium compound tyres. Now we'll see where he filters out. So Marsa goes up into P2 and Glamster up in, oh, so he's in pit lane, sorry. But that allows our 3rd place man of
Savinski.
Yeah, Savinski, sorry.
We can't just call him Philippe, if it's easy to remember. But
to go up into 3rd. I'll get that. I got all season to get there, right?
You have, yes. Yeah, Filip Savinski, if I'm not mistaken, a Polish driver. But I could be wrong on that if memory has failed me here. But Galamadis closing in on David Akayan from the Netherlands then. So they have, of course, got the ground effect, who I believe is lapped behind them, of Perseus Miram. But yeah, Galamadis then on the fresher tyres. You would think Akayan, even on the hards, would be a little bit of a sitting duck on the mediums here, to the mediums of, to the fresh hards of David Akayan here. So, Galamadis. Indeed, Galamadis, as I was saying that, has passed him. So, there we go. Tracy should pay attention to what's happening on stream rather than getting your head buried in the timing screen. Yeah, a little bit of a twitch there from Akayan, as I think even the hards now, after 21 laps, those who started on them, will be starting to feel a bit of pain, particularly into some of the slower corners where the rears might just be starting to step away from you. But you can see now Galamadis desperately trying to catch up to Savinski here. But with this stop, Savinski has got the undercut now on Cedric Bill. So Bill, whenever he pits, he will definitely come out behind Savinski on track. And it's now going to become a question of how long Savinski can stretch this stint out for. If he does make his 2nd pit stop, he doesn't want to leave it too late, but he also doesn't want to run out of softs before the end. So there's a real sweet spot that you don't want to exceed here. Of course, Galamadis was able to do, 15 laps on the soft tyre there. So you would think that would give plenty of time for Savinski to sort of chase down Cedric Bill if he wants to. But it really depends what the best strategy is here. Cedric Bill has got that flexibility, at least, as we see now. Glamsetter is going to go around the outside of Andrei Boratovsky. Oh, and Boratovsky spins almost sort of on his own. And, I was going to say stylish recovery there, but he is just sideways to the circuit. So Andrei Boratovsky avoids disaster at least, but that was a bit, he almost got sort of scared into that spin there at high speed.
Yeah, it's a bit of a scary place to be going side by side through turns 11 and 12. It is some high stakes poker, and he just lost out in that situation. But as for Bill, he's going to have to go, I think, to about lap 35 if he's wanting to go on to a set of softs, unless he's going to go for mediums.
You would think mediums would be the safer option. As oh dear, we're seeing another retirement, and it's Alex Hallows. So we're not going to see any of the main SimSpark team get to the end of this one. We saw him there missing his rear wing. He's got DRS open down the main straight. Has he had a similar incident to Vincentievic? No, it's just over the curb. He gets to stabilize, and bang! The rear hits the wall. And that's a shame for Alex Hallows, who was looking good for points up until that moment.
Yeah. Seen some great racing from him so far, but he's just going to have to dust himself off and be ready next time out.
So that's our 5th or 6th retirement then. So we are left with 18 cars remaining in the race. So that means everybody down to Matthew Stevens is set to score at the present moment. As we look at Latinen on the, of course, he's been on these mediums a little bit of a while now, having pit on lap 3. So they're 20 laps old. Borodovsky also on fairly old hards, having done 21 laps on those. But of course, the hards will be in slightly better shape, being a more durable tyre here. So Latinen's got Rerez Toma, who, of course, having had a little spin, you can see him still being a little bit eager on the loud pedal there through the final couple of corners. But he's still having a good race. It's the Mission 19 Vela 1 GP car. So I was going to say, he's not even 19 years old for the Mission 19 Vela 1 GP driver. But he is definitely looking to put a scalp on Lasse Latinen, but Yasser gets pushed off there by Borodovsky, who gives the sister MV Conquest car no favors whatsoever. So the individual team format definitely in evidence there, as Reyes understeers into the wall there, which will be another close call for him. But he has, of course, got himself ahead of Yasser Latinen. But now the Finnish driver, a regular top 10 finisher in the World Championship last season, will be keen to get back past Reyes here. So Toma is going to have his wits about him here. This is a bit of a tricky situation to find himself in, but he'll be able to test himself against one of the front runners, our pole sitter here in the Pro Championship, bearing down upon him and looking to retake that 9th position.
Yeah, and brilliant stuff so far from Toma. We did see a little bit of an incident from him, or a little bit of a mistake from him earlier, but he seems to be taking everything with a stride, and he's hopefully going to be a top driver come the end of the championship. I can see that he'll be improving from race and race.
There we go. Oh, that looks like David Akayan just about letting Kristin Kalamseta through, as Rose Toma is all over the back of Borodovsky here, and he's too far over the back. They collide, and they are tangled together at the exit of turn 2 there, and they are right on the racing line. That could be an accident waiting to happen for the next car coming, which is Sander van Leeuwen. Rose Toma, desperate. They're like two women with handbags here, trying to throw them at each other. I don't know what they're doing here, and this is really not ideal. There we go. Through goes Van Leeuwen, and almost Toma tripping over and that looked like a little bit of petulance there from Borodovsky, starting to lose his head, and Reyes Toma tried to be, I think, apologetic there, but it didn't look like that initial incident was deliberate on the part of Reyes Toma. He just got a little bit too close, and that is kind of the inexperience that can happen when you're doing your first FSR Pro race, let alone at 13 years old as well. So I'm not impressed at Borodovsky, but he could find himself in a bit of trouble with the stewards there as he retires from the race. Toma seems to have sustained a little bit of damage here, but at least he's got both front and rear wings still on here, as David O'Reilly on a fresh set of softs is about to breeze past him into the top 10.
Yeah, and Toma's going to be struggling for top end speed now. There's got to be some sort of damage. You can see just on the straights he's got nothing. So I think he's probably going to be making his way back to pit lane for some damage repairs, but it just seemed as though he had so much speed over Borodovsky through turns 1 and 2 that he wasn't just all over the back of him, he was pretty much in the back of him, and they just became intertwined and into the barriers they went. But tough learning curve for the newcomer, and don't forget he is only 13.
Yeah, so plenty of races still to come, of course, but Rose Toma pits for repairs. If he can keep going, we are left with, I believe, only 17 cars still running now. So there's every chance he could maybe sneak into 15th, 14th if the attrition rate continues. We have only just passed half distance here, and we've seen so much action drama already. Yasser Latinen, let's remind ourselves, fell to the very back of the field almost, into sort of 18th, wasn't he? After that collision with Terry Crawford. He is now P8 pretty legitimately. I think has Latinen switched to the hard tyre while we've not been paying attention. I believe he has. Is this the... Oh no, I think he might have always been on the hards to begin with, and I've forgotten. So maybe it was the timing screen glitch there. But I'm surprised. Maybe he's only just come in, because he's quite far behind Viscott now. Oh no, only by about 4 seconds. So yeah, I think he just genuinely has stealthily kept the hards running a bit longer after pitting on lap 3 then, as we see Filip Zawinski within 12 seconds of the lead now and starting to catch Nandor Marsa here. So Marsa could be a real stumbling block if Zawinski wants to try and win this one on the fresher tyres than Bill at the moment. But of course, there's the big question of how much longer can Marsa go as well. He is also doing the same strategy as Cedric Bill.
Yeah, we'll have to see roughly when Bill's going to come in. I'm trying to think how many laps we've seen someone manage to do on the mediums. I think it's roughly around 20 to 20, about 20 laps at most, I think, on the mediums. So you probably expect to see him come in around lap 30, maybe a little bit after.
Yeah, Zawinski did 17 laps on them in the first stint.
Yeah, so but I feel like Zawinski was kind of burning them up a little bit, though. You could see he was just trying as hard as he could to keep up with Bill and getting on the loud pedal a bit. So maybe with Bill's tyre whispering abilities, he might get a couple more laps out of them.
There we go then. Confirmation it's not 70 drives remaining, it is 16. So with the retirement of Borotowski then, because I think Capello, also who was at the back anyway, has decided to end his first appearance in FSR Pro, which is a shame, because it's always good to see new drivers finishing the race then. But it's been both experienced drivers and rookies alike that have fallen foul of stumbling blocks today here. And Albert Parker, certainly Alex Hallows was saying how much in the chat how much he hates that first chicane, which is not surprising given how much difficulty he had there. We also see support from a former third place finisher in this championship, a race winner in the Pro Championship, which is Sergio Fletcher. He used to drive for Valet, of course, when they won the team's championship pro. He says, my guy Matt is scoring some good points today. Well, let's hope Matthew Stevens in his independent Fiji sim racing is, oh my goodness, Zielski getting sideways through turn 6, I believe, and saving an absolute tank slapper while trying to chase down David O'Reilly there. Zawinski, by the way, set the purple middle sector on that last lap. Personal best, 118.1. So he's lapping 9/10 a lap quicker than Cedric Bill in front of him, 1.3 seconds quicker than Nandor Marsa, who's only a second ahead of him now. So Zawinski is flying at the moment, but he needs to make sure he does not lose any time behind Marsa, and there's a lap car ahead of them as well.
Yeah, and just about hanging on there. Interestingly, we're seeing Viscal with fastest middle sector, personal best first sector. He's on those soft tyres right now, according to the live timing, although it doesn't seem to be the case on our timing tower.
I think because it has the softs. It's the three softest compounds essentially in use, so the softs on the race view are actually the hards you see on the stream. The super softs on race view are the mediums, and the ultra softs are the softs. Then, as we see Zawinski bearing down on Nandor Marsa like a ton of bricks here, you would think with the DRS open, this would be a fairly straightforward move. Up the inside into turn 3 he comes. Marsa leaves just enough room. The front wing gets a little tap, but it looked all fair in love and war there. And Nandor Marsa, I think, is very much thinking about his own race and trying to maybe sneak onto the bottom step of the podium here. I think he hasn't quite got the pace to really fight with Zawinski today.
Yeah, and Zawinski 10 seconds now off of Bill, so Bill's going to be coming out behind these guys once he does his pit stop, but it all depends what Zawinski does, whether or not he has to come in and do a short stint on a set of stops, or whether or not somehow he's going to get these hards to the end.
Fastest man on track at the present moment, by the way, is Yasse Latinum, 117.9 last lap then. But of course, he has got to be putting in those fastest laps to make up time there. As we see one of the MV Conquest sister teams getting out the way. Was that Vincentievich then, letting the leaders through for a second time? Indeed it is, in the ALM MV Conquest machine. So Vincentievich, I think, knows he's in the final point scoring position, and that he just needs to steer clear of any hazards there. As Bill comes in for his first stop.
Yeah, and out of the pit lane in 4th position, just being passed there. I think actually that might be one of the lap drivers, but Galamatis has actually come out in 3rd, so he's got a bit of work to do to get up to the front again.
Yeah, and certainly Good to see our new team, Mission Velo 19 Velo 1 GP, with 2 cars still running despite Toma having that big setback that has put him a lap down. He is still on the points in P13 and could well become the youngest point scorer in FSR Pro history, because he saw Szylski in his first appearance as well. Let's not forget about him. Still just about on the lead lap in P11 and trying to chase down David O'Reilly to that moment. Oh, and Toma is out, sadly. So, unfortunately, just as I say that, I seem to put the commentator's curse on him. Toma has had, I think, an accident somewhere that has put him out on the spot for good this time. And there we go. It's again turn 1. So I think Ferris has just gotten a little bit frustrated here on entry. Let's see what happens. Oh, the curb destabilized him. He took too much of it. And it's done an almost identical incident to what Alex Hallows did earlier on.
Yeah, tough break, but he's definitely shown he's got the pace to be in this challenge. Will keep us entertained for races to come. But this is the thing. So for anyone new to this championship, potentially some of the slower drivers who are like, oh well, I'm a bit far at the back, I'm 2 laps down. In this current situation, we only have 15 cars going, so you got to keep going. You can't,
at least 90%.
Yeah,
you gotta think.
Yeah, you gotta keep going. Go to the finish, even if you are a couple laps down, because there is an opportunity you might pick up some points.
Yeah, Zoltzuk, I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, as we see, that looks like Bill trying to chase down Costas Galinamadis. Of course, no team orders in play here. I believe that was another car that was just letting them through there. I think that might have been, was that Branfom that's just been lapped? It's either Branfom or Vincentievich Almiram that was being lapped there in the background. But you can see here that Glamsetter is actually not far behind Cedric Bill now. So that's how much time Christian Glamsetter has gained by undercutting Cedric Bill by several laps. Of course, Cedric Bill now on the fresher hard tyres. You would think Bill, having gone hards to hards, he's got to make another stop near the end, you would expect, for a set of softs. And the problem now is he's got Galinamadis, another driver that's undercut and gone ahead of him. He needs to clear him quickly. Galinamadis pulls to the inside, doesn't really put up too much of a fight there. Let's hope that wasn't some intra-team conspiring there. Now Glamsetter in another satellite Optimal team, looking to make his way through for the Optimal Trophy squad. So, yeah, it is all a little bit mixed up there. Maybe Galinamadis knew there wasn't really much point in fighting Bill, who was actually on the mediums, not the hards, as it's updated now. So Bill could well be still on a 1-stop here. Nando Massa extending this hard tire stint quite a way. And I believe what I was about to say, Zoltzuk was saying he's got 2% on one of his tires. So certainly he has ran them right to the canvas and dropping behind Savinsky at a rate of knots. Cedric Bill will be catching him swiftly here as you see Van Leeuwen exiting the pits in P9, just ahead of Szylski here in the sole remaining Mission 19 Velo 1 GP car.
Yeah, but Szylski's on warmer tyres and he's already got the DRS open.
Tiny gap! There we go. Van Leeuwen, who's had his fair share of knocks today, is getting another one as he desperately opens the steering and almost shows Szylski the wall there. So Szylski, I think, will be feeling that's a bit of an unfriendly welcome to FSR Pro then, as we see, what on earth is happening here? That is, I think, O'Reilly desperately trying to get out of the way of Galinamadis and Glamstetter, who are going at it hammer and tongs for P4. And Glamstetter hanging the rears out here. It's good to see Christian just absolutely going for it in this race. He's been just gaining places here and there ever since that slow start launch off the line. He's been absolutely electric.
Yeah, he's been somewhat like Antonelli in the actual Grand Prix. He's just been pulling his way through as he goes down the inside up into turn 12. And that looks like job done. Yes, it is. So through turns 11 and 12 and up into 4th position.
Yeah, Galinamadis very much backing out, knowing that he didn't really have too much to fight with there once the move was made. We're seeing purple sectors. Aghayan sets the purple final sector, but Glamsetter sets the purple middle sector. In fact, that purple final sector now stolen by Van Leeuwen, having just made that, gotten ahead out of Szylski there. So definitely on the fresher tyres, drivers starting to lap quickly as I think Massa going into the pits now from second position. So he was not able to stretch the stint any longer. So Bill now a clear track ahead of him is 8 seconds behind Philip Zawinski. But Zawinski has almost certainly got to come in before the end, and Cedric Bill will be just absolutely lighting up tire screen to put pressure on Zawinski in the lead of our optimal entries there.
Well, I'd expect Zawinski, if he is going to do a run or a last-minute pit stop for softs, expect to see him in either at the end of lap 35, I think. So we're expecting him soon if he wants to go long on a set of softs. But as it stands, he's losing time hand over fist over Bill, so he doesn't want to leave it too late if he wants to still stay in contention for, well, at least the podium, but for the win.
Yep, so Nando Massa, as we say, re-emerging in a very clear 5th position. A good, that's 13 seconds or so ahead of David Akine then. So Massa could very much be in the mix against Glamsetter and Gallamaris here, but he has got on the same strategy as Cedric Bill, albeit pitting a couple laps later, means he, in theory, has got a bit more tyre life to play with here in this final stint then. So he can't really just afford to nurse these tyres and wait for Glamsetter and Gallamaris to pit ahead of him. He's got to push to make sure they don't catch him at the end when they're on the fresher tyres. So it is punch and counter punch in this high-speed game of chess here at Albert Park then. As we say, lap 35 of 50 then, and Philip Zawinski leads by 7.5 seconds. So Cedric Bill just set a 1:17.8 and gained about 1.1 seconds, or just over a second, I should say, on the race leader there. So Zawinski then knows he... this is the problem. Because Cedric Bill is surely going to catch him before the end, it is a case of timing that final stop, isn't it? He's not. There's not much point in trying to stretch these hards out to the end because he'll just be a sitting duck, surely.
Yeah, and what are you going to do? Are you going to go for a set of mediums and just go flat out without having to worry too much about tyre life, or are you going to try and extend this a little bit more and see if you can get a bit more performance out of a set of softs? It all depends where you're going to end up. I think he is on course for a podium. The win, bit of a far reach, I think.
Yeah, so just looking through, who was it that started on the soft tyres? I know Riley's on it at the moment. He's only done a couple of laps on the ultra soft in P11. I'm trying to remember.
I want to say it was Glamster that did 15 laps on the softs, I think, at the start, if I can remember.
I'm not so sure it was him. I'm pretty sure it was Gallamaris.
It might have been.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a brush with the wall there for Miriam.
Oh dear. So Miriam survives that one. Yeah, there we go. So Costas Gallamaris did 15 laps on the ultra soft tyres. So, but he was having to, I think, conserve a little bit in those last couple of laps. So you would think sort of 13 laps ideally. But again, you sort of you don't want to run it too marginal and run out of time to make the move there, as we now see Van Leeuwen all over the back of Lucas Viscott then. Viscott, of course, who kind of struggled in World Championship for most of last season, is having a much better time of things in Pro. But here comes Van Leeuwen recovering, pushing right to the outside. So yeah, he doesn't seem to be on particularly friendly terms with Viscott after battling quite physically with him earlier.
Well, I was going to say Van Leeuwen was getting bullied quite a lot earlier by the other drivers. And
it looks like Viscott was heading for the grass there.
I was going to say he was probably going to need a ticket to get back in from the car park there. But yeah, Van Leeuwen definitely getting his elbows out now, as we see coming into pit lane. That's Vincentievich, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think that might drop him behind Matthew Stevens, who I think is Matthew Stevens. He's only just pit, I think. So he's another on our one-stop strategy. So that's why he's fallen to P15 then. But that should very quickly become P14. Although Vincentievich gets out the pits very quickly. And there we go, actually. Matthew Stevens is going to stay in that final points-paying position then. So I think a mistake from Matthew Stevens, as he was really struggling with tyre wear on the hards at the end there.
Yeah, and we're still looking at, well, this is Viscott, but I'm still looking at Vincentievich. No. Yes, Vincentievich, is it? No. I've completely got my.
This is Latinen that we're looking
Yes,
at the moment.
Is Latinen, but Savinsky I was thinking of. Sorry.
Okay,
But
poor Philippe.
it's but Bill is closing hand over fist. So at which point do you think? Do I come in for a set of mediums and not lose so much time, or do I hemorrhage time on these hards and see if I can get a lot more time out of those softs, because it is starting to get quite critical now.
12 laps to go, so he's sort of getting to the point where I think what Savinsky really wants to do is pit with maybe 10 laps to go and push the softs to their limit to try and catch Bill at the end. The other question is, it might not just be Bill that he drops behind, given that we don't know exactly when Glamsetter and Ganlamadis are going to pit, and we know Master as well is going to try and get to the end. So this is a tricky situation for Savinsky. He's kind of in a sort of snookered on strategy where he's either going to be caught trying to stay out, or he's going to lose too much track position trying to make up ground in the final stint at the end here. As we look at Latinen, who's been sort of forced onto an unideal strategy, having to make that extra stop early doors at the end of lap 3. He's now in the middle of his hard tyre stint. He's been on these tyres since lap 25. It is so they are going to be a bit risky getting to the end here, but he has certainly got the pace to keep Akayan in sight here. But David Akayan is not going to do him any favours in this fight for 6th position.
No, and a brilliant recovery so far from Latinen, considering at one point we saw him facing the wrong way with no front wing, to be back in 7th position and now challenging for 6th position. It's looking good.
Yeah, honestly, that could very well have been the end of his race. It certainly was for poor Terry Crawford. but yeah, Yasser Latinen showing that Finnish Sisu spirit, never giving up. And certainly David Akayan here, who, of course, we did see the ad for it before the race started. He's the driver that actually joined through Grid Finder and signed up there. So we're very grateful to see him doing a second season with us. And certainly he is starting off as he means to go on. And certainly Optimal Trophy have got 2 cars in the top 6 at the present moment. Although Glamsetter and Akayan, I think, are both going to have to pit before the end, realistically. As Nando Master is also starting to close on Ganlamadis, who he was almost 7/10 quicker than on the previous lap then. But David Akayan is very much getting defensive here on those mediums. And you can sense here, the good thing is his mediums are a lot fresher than Latinen's hards here. So as long as he doesn't abuse them too much, he's been on them 7-8 laps now. So Latinen, in theory, is in the weaker position, but we know he's got so much talent, so much speed and confidence underneath that right foot as well on the throttle pedal, that he could be able to dispatch of Akayan despite being inferior in a weaker position here.
Yeah, DRS Open down the start-finish straight, not quite close enough for a move, but it is going to put him in striking distance as they come down on a big bit of oversteer coming out of turn 2, but he's got the flap open again, and Akayan goes a bit on the defensive against Latinen.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Cedric Bill continuing to take a second per lap out of Philip Savinsky. He's 3 seconds behind at the present moment, as this is one of the MV Conquest cars. Oh my goodness, it's Viscott! And Viscott backs it into the wall at turn 6, so easily done. And Lucas Viscott is not going to finish in the top 10. That is his race over then. So another of our MV Conquest cars in difficulties, and this time, sadly, it is Terminal.
Yeah, big impact there once again, and it's going to be frustrating times for Viscott, but again, still, it is the first race of the season. He did show some pretty good promise throughout the race. It's just so easy to make a little mistake on these curbs. They are very punishing, as we've seen for the other people already retired.
It's certainly turning into a race of attrition here in Pro, isn't it? As we now watch Szylski, who's trying to make up ground on the softest compound of tyre. David O'Reilly blocks the way, though. The resident of sole remaining Australian driver in this race then, trying to hold on to P9 here. What a result it would be for David O'Reilly if he could finish in the top 10 in his home event here. But here comes Krzysztof Szyzielski here, who is another of our debutants here. I believe he's another of our Eastern European drivers. Of course, it's sort of a reverse of earlier where O'Reilly was the one on the softs. Now he is under attack on the mediums from another driver on the softs that is doing a much more aggressive strategy. And so Mission 19, Velo 1 GP is certainly rolling the dice with Krzysztof here as we now watch Latinen still keeping Aghayan in sight. I wonder, 8 laps to go. Jesse Latinen, I think, might just be trying to get to the end there, but we see now David O'Reilly getting a bit of a bad exit from the final corner. DRS open for Krzysztof Szyzielski, and he gets these red and black car up the inside into turn 1, and that's going to be important points there for the debutant.
Yeah, I'm just watching here because Savinski still hasn't pitted. We're on lap 42 of 50. Is he going to try and go to the end on these hards?
Well, surely he's committing to this strategy now. It could be a case that he might only pit if the hards really drop off a cliff. With just maybe 7-8 laps to go. So here we go, Aghayan to the outside. Oh my goodness me, Latinen has somehow made it through with the DRS up the inside into turn 3 there, or tried to at least anyway. But yeah, nearly tangling wheels. So Jesse Latinen definitely not showing any hesitancy as Aghayan absolutely hangs it out through turn 6 in a bid to just get the exit here so he's not vulnerable to a DRS attack into turn 11 here.
Yeah, and just looking at the top of the screen now, Savinski now within striking distance, as you can see, from Cedric Bill. Yeah. And I think this is going to be easy picking here for Bill. But with the gap that they have, I think Savinski, like you said, unless the tyres completely fall off the cliff, should be safe for second place.
Yeah, and let's not forget Glamsetter has done a good 22 laps on his set of hard tyres as well, so they won't be in particularly great shape either. Savinski, though, has been on his since lap 18 then. So yeah, it is a bit of a difference there, but is that going to be enough? Here we go. Cedric Bill to the outside, sparks flying out of the back of both cars. Is there going to be enough space into turn 11? Savinski holds his nerve, holds the lead, at least for the time being. Oh! And Aghayan into the side of Latinen, desperately trying to hold that position. And Jesse Latinen, for the second time in this race, is stranded in the gravel.
Yeah, you could see that was about to happen, but there's side-by-side action here between Miram and
Marsa getting past Ganla Martis there, really bold around the outside there from the Hungarian, and Nandor is having an absolutely excellent run.
Yeah, and it's another slipstream here from Bill. He's going to try another go into turn 1. No defending.
Bill's got to be careful here because he's got enough to... Oh, it's a really tight step out. I was going to say the mediums, they won't last forever here. He's been pushing them quite hard to catch. So Savinski having that track position, he may not really have amazing exit out of these corners, but if he defends well, there might be a chance here. So Cedric Bill has really got to be careful that he doesn't trip up over Filip Savinski here. He's got to make a clean move.
Yeah, and we saw there just nearly dropping it at turn 2, like a lot of the other guys gone. He's gone wide again. So
it looked like a rear tire hanging there. I wonder if that's Viscott's that's still on track.
Yeah, I think it is, but he's losing time now. He's has he lost DRS this time round? I think he has.
They are given a certain amount of push to pass, remember, that they are allowed to deploy. I believe it's about 90 seconds or so, depending on the circuit. So it could be that Savinski is tactically using that to respond down in the DRS zone. He may have been saving it up for this very moment here, but Cedric Bill closing in through Ascari as he gets late on the brakes through 13 and 14. So this could be a really exciting final 5 laps of the race here. Filip Savinski against all odds, holding on to the lead, but Cedric Bill, he has won twice in Pro before, looking for win number 3. Savinski looking for win number 1 here, but he's got very worn hard tyres. Up the inside goes Bill into turn 1. Savinski, finds there's just not quite enough room for him on the outside, but I think that was a clean move. Bill back into the lead with 5 laps to go.
Yeah, I think that wasn't the best of defending there from Savinski, but he put up a brilliant fight, and this has allowed Bill into the lead. But Savinski, I think he's going to be fairly comfortable there in second position now. Those tyres well and truly worn, so nothing to fight back with unless Bill manages to make another mistake. But is the replay of the move. Oh no, this is something else.
This is the back high.
High.
Oh!
So nothing. Yeah.
Has that been another incident between Akain and Latin? Was that the same one from earlier? I believe it's the same one. Yes, okay, sorry. I was just thinking how much worse can things get before Yase. Here is to the outside. DRS opening. It was an aggressive chop there. I think Akain got very surprised by that one.
Yeah, I feel like, Akain, what's he supposed to do in this situation? He's not going to disappear. I think it was just Latimer just turning in a little bit too early, even though he was only halfway alongside Akain. So
it was more than Yase really needed to. I think there was a little bit of frustration. It's a shame because he's had a great recovery otherwise.
Yeah, still lives to fight on for these last 3 laps. It's nothing too major. He's not lost out massively here.
He's still about 9/10 behind Akain, isn't he? There they are on screen at the moment. Another interesting battle, Nando Marsa, 5 seconds behind Christian Glamsetter, but with only 4 more laps to go, he is sort of catching him at 9/10 per lap at the moment. He really needs to be catching by over a second a lap, really. And Christian Glamsetter doing a very, very good job to hold on to that final spot on the podium. So that could get very tense as Glamsetter's hards start to fade versus Marsa's mediums in this final part of the race.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough for him. I think he's going to be safe though, is Glamsetter.
Yeah, the Norwegian driver, I believe, Glamsetter, has been doing a absolutely fabulous job, of course, since he did start, didn't he? P3 on the grid, stalled up, and now he's back in P3 through a lot of hard work. So it's certainly been a sort of roller coaster race for him. But yeah, certainly him and Akain for the Optimal Trophy squad could well see themselves in a very strong position in the Teams Championship. But it's the main Optimal team of Bill and Van Leeuwen, 1st and 8th at the moment, that could well be leading coming out of Albert Park at the first race of the season then. But what an opener we've been treated to so far. You have to say, Savinsky and Glamset have been 2 of the big surprises, our debutants in FSR Pro Championship. And we can't forget the likes of Bill, of course, picking up very much where he left off. Latinen recovering well, although he's still got a small chance of fighting Akain for P6 here. But it's really just the case for Bill now of just getting it home. As we see, a bit of action a bit further down. I think that's Latinen just closing back within range of Akain there, as we see that's O'Reilly, I think, getting out of the way to be lapped here.
Yeah, and Latinen trying to go round the outside Akain. He nudges
another
Akain.
touch. So there we go. He Akain sort of got caught at the apex there. And Latinen, he's certainly going to feel that he's been fighting with drivers he might consider a little bit slower, as he really has a bit of a twitchy moment coming out there. So Yase is taking all the risks here in this fight for P6. And David Akain is really just stoutly defending as best he can. And so far, he's just about holding on by the skin of his teeth. But against Yase Latinen, you've really got to pull out all the stops if you want to keep him behind.
Yeah, he was at one point consistently lapping almost a second a lap quicker than the leaders. At one point, I think definitely the red mist had landed.
He's gone from about 58, 54 seconds behind to about 43 seconds behind him. He's only now just starting to lose time fighting Akain. So that really shows you how much time he's gained and what could have been for poor Yase Latinen. Of course, we've still got a long way to go in this season. And you never know, Bill might have a struggle later on. He did have his odd off days last season, especially at the start of last season in Pro, where he was having races where he was really not having the best of luck. But now, Latinen gets the DRS once again. Akain again defends to the inside. And this time, Latinen sort of is able to see it coming and doesn't hit the back of the Optimal car in front of him. Yeah,
and Akain just parking it where he needs to be, stopping any chance of Latinen getting through. Because the problem is, once you get too close to the car in front, you're pretty much restricted as to what you can do. It's almost controlled by the person in front. But he's definitely got a good run here. Is he going to have a move going into turn 11?
Here we go, DRS to the outside. There's a little bit of a kink. You've really got to control it well at high speed to the outside. Latinen's almost got the whole car alongside, but it's not enough. Akain is very brave, is very bold, and is able to hold on to that sick position. He's just got to defend for 2 more laps here, but Jesse Lattinen is throwing the kitchen sink and everything at him, and you can tell these hards are really starting to, they're almost heating up way too much at the rear here, and Lattinen is running out of tricks to throw at Akine.
Oh, yeah, struggling massively. He's definitely got overheated those rears now as he tries to put down the loud pedal. It just doesn't want to comply with what Lattinen wants it to do, but some brilliant racing there, side by side through 11 and 12. Oh, and he's had another big off there. So I think that's probably all she wrote there for Lattinen. But yeah, some brilliant racing there between the pair of them. And I was sure, given what we've seen already from these two, there was going to be contact, but there wasn't.
Yep, so certainly an impressive display. We've seen a surprising amount of clean side-by-side moves through that 11-12 chicane, haven't we? But in what's been a very chaotic, incident-filled race, certainly for this man, Jesse Lattinen, as we see, close call coming to the exit of the pits there. Is that Sander van Leeuwen going on to a set of soft tyres just ahead of the final lap there? Curious call, that one. But certainly Sander wants to make a statement here. He might run out of time to set the fastest lap unless he can unlap himself here.
Yeah, he's going to have to push hard to unlap himself from his teammate, which...
Cedric could let him through legitimately. They are optimal actual teammates rather than just part of the same sort of stable, essentially, the same ownership, the same entity.
Yeah, and well, actually,
here we go. Bill going wide, and there goes through Sander van Leeuwen then. So he'll get one attempt to set the fastest lap then on a fresh set of soft tyres then. Time to beat, I believe, is Lattinen 1:17.649. Akine has gotten fairly close to that. Oh no, Van Leeuwen has already got the fastest lap, I believe, 1:17.3. Unless Szylski might be slightly faster than that actually at the moment. Here we go. Bill about to complete the race then. Well, he qualified on the front row. He was on the best strategy. The one stop was the way to go. Across the line comes Cedric Bill to win the Australian Grand Prix, his 3rd career pro victory for the Frenchman. Philip Savinsky put up a spirited display. It's still going to be second on debut for him, with Christian Glamstedt recovering up to 3rd to beat Nando Massa to the podium. It is 3 different optimal teams on the podium then. Galamatis will come home to finish 5th, but 6th position is still up for grabs. Lattinen, a bit of a dive up the inside into 13, but he wasn't really close enough to pull that one off. So Akine has just got to hold off for 2 corners more, and he is going to take a very spirited P6 here. Yeah,
brilliant drive there. I think Lattinen was hoping he was going to manage to do a Fuoco like last night's Sebring 12 hour, but didn't quite work out. But still, brilliant.
And a collision there. I think Akine thought very much believed the race was over and slowed down, and Lattinen got a bit caught out there and lost his front wing.
Yeah, but
here we go then. So that is the big question everyone's in my mind, of course. Can Sander van Leeuwen salvage the fastest lap out of this one? He has gone purple in the first sector, personal best in the middle. Nando Massa actually did go 2 tenths quicker on his final lap in that middle sector there. Across the line comes Van Leeuwen. It will be almost certainly 1:17, a 1:16.5. There we go. That is comfortably the fastest lap of the race. So Van Leeuwen, the gamble pays off. He was going to finish P8 anyway, so why not? So, and Krzysztof Szylski for Mission 19 Velo 1 GP is going to take a couple of points for P9. And Brandfond, we didn't talk too much about Danover, but he did recover into the top 10. So definitely, despite all the issues, Brandfond was the big gainer from where he qualified just outside the top 20.
Yeah, and brilliant race for the first race of the season. We learnt, or we did definitely learn quite a lot. I feel for Galamatis, Glamster, who had the poor start. You got to think that if it weren't for the fact that he had all that extra work to do as a result of the poor start, he may have even been involved in that lead battle between the top 2. So it's all looking very good as we go into the next round.
Yep. And Cedric Bill keep this momentum going, take his first FSR title. He was one of our title contenders in Academy at the end of 2024. Ended up finishing as the runner-up there. He was 3rd in Pro last season, and this season has started in exactly the way he would have wanted it to. But Jesse Lattinen, having taken pole position, was looking in control in the first 3 laps, or first 2 and a bit laps, it must be said. He could well be his strongest challenger over the rest of this season, but Savinsky as well rolled the dice to try and keep him behind, and it was only a late move from Bill. He definitely had to really pull out all the stops to make sure he kept that first position that he held for a fair chunk of this race, including, crucially, on that final lap then. But anyway, as Bill comes in, just parks it into his pit box in front of the pace car, which we won't see used because we don't have safety cars in FSR, although it is something that people have asked to change. We have got, of course, changeable weather and wet tyres returning for this season, which we didn't mention up to now, so I think now might be a good moment to just casually drop that. But let's look then at the final finishing order, pre-penalties or any investigations. Cedric Bill wins on the road after 50 laps of intense racing action. Philip Savinsky for Optimal Hosting is the runner-up on his debut. Christian Glamsetter on his debut as well recovers up to P3 after having to make several moves to get his way back up the order. Nando Massa tried to get the one-stop to work in his favour and very much made it work into P4, beating Costas Galamatis for the Optimale squad. David Akhian for Optimal Trophy holds on from Jesse Lattinen to take P6. A messy race for Lattinen, but he showed amazing pace, and there's still a long way to go in this season. Sander van Leeuwen himself having a few visits to the School of Hard Knocks today takes P8 and the fastest lap with it. Krzysztof Szylski on his debut for Mission 19 Velo 1 GP, the new team in FSR Pro, takes P9, with Dano Branfon for Valle rounding out the top 10. And the top 8, the only drivers on the lead lap then. So that does tell you the pace of the leaders and the attrition involved. David O'Reilly takes one of his best finishes in the Pro Championship in P11 in his home race. Persis Miram finishes P12 for Ground Effect. Mihajlo Vincentjevic is 13th for LMV Conquest. Matt Stevens takes P14 and is our final finisher, taking 2 points for Kiwi SimRacing, not Fuji SimRacing, as I mistakenly said earlier. Lucas Viscott didn't quite do 90% before crashing out, so he might not get the final point in P15. Reres Toma also involved in a huge crash, along with Andrei Borotovsky, Alex Hallows, Andrea Capello also retiring in his first appearance, along with Jared Batala, who is our 6th non-finisher. Samuel Tadona also failed to finish, along with Mauricio Mizol, Terry Crawford in that collision with Lattinen, and Zaba Elekis as well, who did not get far at all for the Severin Aris team, having gone straight into the pit wall at the start of the race then. So that concludes an exciting action-packed pro opener, but in a few short minutes' time, we will be getting going for the World Championship. That should be in about just 40 minutes or so, I think, the practice will open up for that. So we wait to see if Mark Schluter can retain his title, but he's joined by some big names, of course. Aaron Vasquez, the #1 rated iRacing driver. He is taking part along, of course, with the likes of Loic Monnier, the reigning Super League champion. Janos Braksok, finally a race winner in the World Championship after winning at Mexico last season. Jan Grankvist, another Super League World Champion. And then, of course, you've got some spectacular drivers like Alex Lahoa, a Super Lights World Champion, taking part as well. And many of the old favourites, along with some new faces, all looking to prove themselves. So that is going to be a spectacular display. And, of course, you have got Ewan O'Leary, Owen Harmon, and David O'Reilly, you just saw in action there. They're going to talk you through that. But my thanks, of course, to you, Ryan, for joining me for this first pro race of the season. And, of course, to our broadcast director, Amir Oates, for doing a fabulous job, the both of you. We'll be back for our next pro race on the 5th of April at Suzuka in Japan, which is sure to be just as exciting and action-packed and possibly incident-filled as this was. But for now, I've been Ed Hunter. Congratulations to Cedric Bill for winning tonight. World Championship still to come, but Pro has got off to a fantastic start. Good night and enjoy the World Championship still to come.